Hello and welcome. So this week we are looking at peer-to-peer exchanges, which is quite a prominent topic at the minute. There's a lot of really good exchanges out there, and people trying to do some different stuff, which is absolutely brilliant. And Exodus here this week has brought out the tutorial for how to use the DCRDEX. And one thing I was noting as I was watching the tutorial this week is how far the DEX has come in a relatively short period of time. So we're only looking about less than 2 years really from when we went from MPV mode, which is like the proof of concept, to something that actually works. And obviously in the next year or so, it's going to get even bigger. So Exodus, do you want to say something before I go into the next bit?
No, just excited to talk about DEXs and how they compare to our DCRDEX.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest takeaway here for everyone listening is it's not to criticize, it's just to see how people are doing things and how they're kind of taking it further and kind of experimenting with the different ways in which it can be implemented. It is a new technology. I don't believe for a second that everyone's got it right, but there is some really cool stuff happening. So hopefully it'll kind of have some really good conversation. Some of the questions that I want to look at throughout this video, and we'll chip in. Hopefully, you guys on the live stream can chip in with your thoughts as well. And I've got 5 questions to read already. But some of the questions are: how do these exchanges get funded? And that's actually quite a prominent part of it. If they get funded in a very decentralized way and kind of take away the fees, that can be a real big bonus to a decentralized exchange. The next one is: what fees are there to participate in the exchange? And then, is there a token in the middle of the exchange? So are these exchanges using a separate token just to facilitate the trade? And then finally, is the code open source? And can technical users build on the market? So what that last question, so I had to really think about that last question, is kind of what they're trying to do with the DCRDEX is make this idea where anyone can spin up a server and anyone can run the code and channel into the order book. So I kind of want to look at that as well. So those are the main questions. Before we go any further, let's just look at how Decred is performing this week. So I've just brought up the charts here. So let's just head on over to the full screen mode and just kind of work through what's been going on the Decred blockchain. So we're currently at block 600,055, 418, and we've been running well over 6 years now, which is absolutely brilliant. The voting, so the ticket price is going through the roof. So as you know, in I think it's about 9 days time, we've actually got this change of consensus, which is going to blow my mind. Really, it's something that hasn't been done before. Where in midstream you're changing the consensus, where the miners will go down to a 10% of the reward and the stakeholders will get 80%. So at the moment, the ticket price is 224 DCR coins, and then in the next ticket it goes up to 225. The ticket pool size should be around 41,000 tickets in the pool. So it's slightly over that, not by much, in a 0.5%. So the voting reward is currently at 0.65, but like I say, after 10 days or 9 days, that's actually going to go to 1.7. And the current amount staked of the total coin supply is currently 8,863,000, which is 63% of the total coin supply, which is absolutely massive. So in terms of the mining and the security behind the chain, the hash rate is currently at 356 petahashes, which is about 36% up over the last 30-day period. And the mining rewards, that's going to go from 6.5%, and in 9 days' time, that will be 1.8 DCR coins. I said 6%, I meant 6.5 DCR going down to 1.08 DCR. So a massive reduction there. And then finally, the Decred treasury has got 885,000 coins in it, currently valued at about 45 million. So we've got a runway there of about 5 to 10 years, which is absolutely brilliant, not including the coins that are still going to go into it. So that's pretty much it for what's been going on there. So let's head back over to Exodus and let him talk to us about what he's been up to with the DCRDEX and the tutorial.
Yeah, so finally released DCRDEX tutorial. Using the DEX nowadays is super easy. As you saw in the tutorial, most of it was very basic instruction. Okay, click the button to create your Bitcoin wallet, create your password. It's all very easy now. And I guess the most confusing part for a lot of people is the lot size and maybe the whole epoch matching bit of it, where when you enter a trade, it might not execute right away because I believe it waits for an epoch of time to collect the trades. When I did my trade, it did it instantly, so I didn't really have to wait for that. But yeah, the DEX is super easy to use. We have a walkthrough tutorial. There's new coins coming. There's new features coming. I believe they're adding like Tor support is coming soon. Zcash, Dogecoin, Ethereum is like being finalized. So there's so much coming to the DEX. Hopefully we see more servers. Right now there's just one server, but it's going to be really exciting to see the evolution of the DEX. This is just the beginning. And it seems like people have been enjoying the tutorial. We're going to have more tutorials, of course, as the DEX gets better. I believe starting next week or maybe in another week, SPV mode will work on the DEX. So you do not need to run, the Decred full node. You can just run your Decred wallet in SPV mode. And then of course the Bitcoin node's in SPV mode. So it's just going to be easier to use. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's just keeps my attention, and I've been reading through all of what's been happening on like the dev logs and the community logs, and one of the big things that the community is getting really riled up about is the Dogecoin implementation. And I was talking to a mate of mine. It's like, yeah, Doge is coming to the DEX. It's like, wow. It's like,
yeah, they already did. They already did swaps on mainnet with Doge. I mean, Doge is it's a fork of Bitcoin, so it's quite easy to add. But yeah, the GitHub repo for DEX it is one of the most active repos. I don't know if you guys ever check GitHub, but if you want to like really look into Decred, GitHub's where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the bonus of it being open source. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. But yeah, there's so much developer work going on with the DEX. It's crazy. Some of it's hard to translate to English, but
Yeah. So let's try my questions on the DCRDEX. So I'll ask the question and maybe just give us your kind of overview of how you think things are progressing. So the first one is,
sure.
How is the DCRDEX getting funded?
Sure. The DCRDEX is funded by the Decred DAO, which comes from the Decred block reward. 10% of every block goes into a decentralized treasury controlled by Decred stakeholders. So, and for this reason, we don't need, the Decred DEX does not need to rent seek. And for that reason, there are no fees on the DEX. You do pay on-chain transaction fees for your atomic swaps, but there's no actual fees collected by the DEX. And I believe the Decred DEX is unique in that regard. Most chains have fees you pay, or you have to buy some sort of intermediary token. So I think the DEX is unique in that regard. I know Monero's upcoming DEX does have trading fees, which you pay to the new Monero DEX, which is called, I believe it's called Haveno. So yes, the money comes from Decred's block reward, which is certainly one of the most innovative things I've seen in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I mean, you just answered most of those questions actually, because a lot of the exchanges we're going to look at say do use that coin in the middle to kind of fund itself or whatever. But so it is important to say that the DEX doesn't have any trading fees apart from the mining fees. But it's also interesting to say that everything that we're looking at today also has those same mining fees. So that's pretty much common across all of them. And then the DCR DEX doesn't even need the DCR coin to facilitate the trades, which I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, sure. You can trade directly between different blockchain assets. There's no need for Decred. You can trade between, once they add more assets, between Bitcoin and Litecoin, Bitcoin and Dogecoin. There's no gatekeeping. It's a truly open source project. And I saw in Element chat.decred.org, one of the developers was like, maybe we should call the DEX Open DEX instead of DCRDEX, because it really is a truly open source, open project DEX.
Yeah, I think so completely. We got some questions before we move on, because I mean, it is literally one of the only DEXs I've seen that is saying no, we're not going to charge any fees, although we have this registration fee, which is currently less than $6, and that's forever. As long as you don't do any nefarious activity, that's literally it. Which no one's doing that. So the questions. It says Britt is just leaving Florida Barms and he's listening to the show as he heads down to the islands. Well done. That's fantastic. And great. Keep things simple. Yeah, absolutely. We've also got some at the bottom of the post. Actually, if I load them, that will break. So I'm not going to do that because for some reason my computer keeps chucking the sync out. I might need to look at that. But if I keep things simple, it should be okay. The next one that I want to look at is actually Shapeshift. Now, as I said before, this isn't really a critique of these guys, and I do believe that they're all doing things slightly different. They're trying things out. And the thing with Shapeshift in particular, it was one of the first to actually look at this decentralized, trustless model rather than decentralized. Because as far as I'm aware, there's always been like some help support in the Shapeshift. And one of the books I'm reading recently, I want to give a shout out to Laura Shin actually. And if you guys haven't read her new Cryptopian book, it's absolutely brilliant. It literally delves into how the Ethereum was built and kind of some of the development processes, and it really looks heavily into the governance. So how all the arguments weren't resolved, and all the arguments behind the scenes that maybe a lot of us weren't aware of. But it's actually a really good book. And one of the topics that she picked up on was Shapeshift. And when the DAO hack was happening on Ethereum, the person that did the attack actually used Shapeshift to transfer from BTC into Ethereum in order to protect his privacy and remain anonymous. And then when he was trying to withdraw the funds, although I don't think they managed to withdraw ETH, they actually managed to withdraw ETC, which is Ethereum Classic. And she talked about the way in which the Shapeshift was able to block some of those transactions, which kind of says to me, if that similar thing was to happen on the DEX, I don't believe that would be even a possibility. That blocking stage wouldn't even be possible. Am I right in thinking that?
So the atomic swaps, they either happen or they don't. So there's no in between, right? So once you go and you execute your swap and they're trading, it either happens or it doesn't. I don't think there's any way to block it. There is no way to block it. So that's the power of it. So yeah.
And I mean, fair play to Shapeshift. They were doing, or they are still doing, something slightly different to what the centralized exchanges were doing. And they have, as of this year, just released their code as open source, which obviously helps them to become decentralized. And they've actually started their roadmap to become decentralized. Their website is an absolute pig to read, I've got to be honest, and trying to find out the answers to the questions was actually quite difficult. But as far as I can see, and I've got the sheet up on here, as far as I can see, it's not completely trustless. It may be working towards being trustless and being decentralized, but it's not completely yet. And also, they've put their Fox token directly in the middle of pretty much everything that they do. It seems also like they're building up partnerships with Ethereum and Thor Chain as well. So it looks like they're going to be doing a lot of their trading in those spaces, which seems interesting. We'll see how that pans out. In terms of fees, there is a fee, and apparently you can reclaim back some of that fee using the Fox token, and you will also have to pay the mining fees. So as far as feeless and trustless, it's a halfway house, I think. But the interesting thing with Shapeshift, of course, is it was pretty much the first one that was even trying this. So that's quite interesting. Now, what's your thoughts on Thor Chain? This is the big topic in cryptocurrency at the moment. And I was listening to what Dave Collins had to say about it, and I thought it was quite interesting. But what do you know about Thor Chain?
Well, all I know is a community member wanted to get it funded. So he put up a bounty of, I think $100,000 to get it added. I think it has quite a bit of liquidity. It's gaining popularity, but I've also seen it getting hacked. And generally speaking, I don't know if I trust something that can get hacked. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see the DCRDEX get hacked. It's being built to be, the term is bomb-proof. But I don't know too much about it. Would I like to see Decred on there? Sure. But I think that the Decred DEX is probably the more safe, the more sure system to use, the more safe DEX. But I know some Decred developers were quite hesitant to work to work on getting Decred integrated, or they just weren't so interested. I can't remember specifically the reasons off the top of my head, but maybe it has to do with custody. What do you know about it?
Yeah, but I've got the bits and pieces in front of me. So the
Perfect.
idea is that it is liquidity pools. Now, to simplify that term, a liquidity pool, as I understand it, is literally just a multi-sig wallet. And the hacks that you were talking about, the one that they just had, I think it was a compromise on the multi-sig wallet. And there was a couple of other bridges as well that had this same thing. And I'm not sure if you know about the bridges, but obviously Atomic Swaps is a bridge. So it basically bridges from one platform to another. And a lot of platforms now, a lot of cryptocurrencies are trying to build these bridges. But in order to get from one system to another and share the data and anything of the fun stuff they want to do, there's always this kind of multi-sig wallet that kind of holds it for a little bit, and it acts like your trusted third party.
Yes.
And that's where the compromise is. So when they say liquidity provider or a liquidity pool, that's the multi-sig wallet. Now, what the traders have to do is if they want to earn a yield in Rune, which is the Thor Chain coin that kind of gives them um, the yield or the interest, they have to provide, say, £100,000 of BTC, but they also have to provide £100,000 worth of Rune. And the idea is, because Rune is capped at something like 500 million coins, or maybe it's a billion, I can't remember. Because it's capped, the more that Rune gets used, it actually kind of balances the trade-off so that the slippage doesn't actually become massive. So it is quite interesting, and it's one of the big problems in trading is if you wanted to buy, a couple of £1 billion worth of Bitcoin or whatever, the slippage would be absolutely massive, because halfway through people would realize you're buying it and just chuck their prices right up. And that's what the idea with this is to give you that consistency. And the people
Okay.
putting up the liquidity obviously get rewarded for that. So it's not trustless. The fact that there is a liquidity pool means that somebody somewhere, even if it's 5 or 6 people or however many people, they're controlling the keys. To my knowledge, it's not like the Decred where company zero is holding one key and the stakeholders are holding the other. It's actually specifically 5 people or whatever. So, maybe in the future, once they go down the Decred route of giving it over to stakeholders, then that would make that a bit more trustless.
Hmm.
And in terms of fees, obviously the fees are going to be high, because one man's yield is another man's fee, of course. So the more yield somebody gets, the higher the fees are going to be. And I do believe that there is also mining fees to be paid on top of that as well. And once again, Rune is the coin in the middle of all the trades. So if you wanted to go from Bitcoin, you'd have to go to Rune into Ethereum or something like that.
So to trade on Thor Chain, do you need to buy Rune first?
I believe.
Yeah, I think that's the whole
I'm not.
point,
I'm not
right?
100% sure. Yeah, I think certainly the liquidity providers have to.
Okay, so
I'm not
Rune
sure
is the
about the
middleman.
traders. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look at their books to see that. But yeah, it does seem like an interesting one. And the problem that they're trying to solve is obviously this liquidity problem, making sure that anybody can buy any amount and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it does seem interesting. It would be nice to see what happens with the Decred implementation actually. And there was a big rise up the other day. I don't know if you saw some of the posts that were going about where the Dash community handle for Twitter shouted out that Dash was building the
Yes. Yes.
Decred implementation, and of course it was, I've
Yeah.
forgotten his name.
Yeah.
FST.
I wish Thor Chain the best of luck. Obviously, Thor Chain operates much different from our atomic swap DEX. So, if people want to use it, go ahead. Obviously, they have their own choice. And I think having choices is good in cryptocurrency.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I've seen people complain about atomic swap based DEXs because they do take a bit of time for the trades to settle. It's not really geared towards, say, day traders who are quickly going in and out of trades. No, it's more, you're executing a trade in, you know, uh, this perfectly trustless fashion. As I said before, bomb proof, hack proof, whatever. So it's different, a different rhythm for whatever you want, however you want to trade. And I think that's good for
Yeah,
cryptocurrency, having options.
and ultimately it's all new. So this is all testing ground, and as far as I'm concerned, the first 20, 30 years it's all going to be testing ground to see which way forward it should go. So the more experiments the better.
Yeah,
Brilliant stuff.
one thing I hope to see for the DCRDEX, since it's open source, technically speaking, anyone can go and integrate it into their own wallet. So technically, the Zcash developers can add the DEX into their own wallet. Same with Dogecoin, even though I don't think anyone actually works on Dogecoin. Same with Dash. Same with Litecoin. So there's a lot of room forward. But yeah, they could literally add the DEX into their own wallet and have it so Zcash users pay a Zcash fee to sign up. You
Yeah,
know, it's
and
completely open source, no gatekeepers, and it'll be very interesting to see if that actually happens. If these other communities recognize the value of the DEX and say, "Hey, we should add this into our wallet." For Litecoin, I don't think it would happen. They don't have any developers. Zcash actually has funding, so it could happen. Dash has funding, so yeah.
the frustrating part for me is I don't think these communities have actually worked out that they can do that. That they almost, because it's called DCRDEX, they almost think, oh, we're going to have to trade in Decred, and they haven't worked out. Actual fact, they can literally eventually sync into the trading order books and actually charge their participants in their own coin for the registration fees. And the sooner they understand that, I think that's a game
Well,
changer. And it would be nice to see, people like Monero stepping up and rather than, and it's up to them if they build their own. I suspect we'll see a lot of our own code in there. But
Monero we'll talk about soon because they're creating their own exchange. Um, but we've tweeted at Litecoin people on Twitter, hey, there's a DEX, your coin's already supported. There's no market for it yet, and there's no server. Why don't one of you guys try to start an initiative to start up a server, and you can trade between Litecoin and Bitcoin. You don't even need to include Decred.
if
And
no
they
one
just are kind of like, oh, that's cool. And I made a post on Reddit, and I think it got like 50 upvotes. So it got some upvotes on on the Litecoin subreddit. And it was just mostly like, oh, that's cool. There was no like demand, like, oh my God, I need to use this. This is the perfect way to trade. It was just like, oh, cool. Uh, you know,
yeah,
Unfortunately, most of these communities are just concerned with with the exchange rate going up, and they aren't really concerned with some of these underlying technologies, the underlying premise behind cryptocurrency of self custody, privacy, stopping rent seeking. So hopefully in the
yeah.
future they realize, hey, there's this DCR DEX is really great. We should use it, and it brings more people to the DEX, and with that, it brings more people into Decred. So yeah,
Yeah,
I see Bisq is next.
yeah, we got Bisq next. Now, I'm going to apologise about this because I think last time you mentioned Bisq, I scoffed a little bit, and I apologise until reading up on it. And actual fact, I mean, a guy this morning posted in and just said, "Look, you've got to cover Bisq." So okay, I'll have a proper look and I'll give it some proper attention. I'm glad I did, because although I still think there's issues there, the problem they're trying to solve is trying to find a decentralized way of doing fiat pairs, so trading from
Yes.
Bitcoin into fiat. Do you know much more about Bisq, or just what you know?
I downloaded it. I think I could be wrong here. I know it runs on Tor. I know it does a lot of things right, but one thing that is happening is, do you know anything about the new Monero DEX that's coming out?
No, should we do Bisq and then you got to tell me about that because I haven't
Yeah,
heard that
let
one yet.
me let me link you quickly the frequently asked questions. But basically, Havano is a fork of Bisq. Havano is Monero's new exchange, which they funded. It is a fork of Bisq. However, it uses Monero as the underlying asset and not Bitcoin. And for that reason, the fees are much lower. The transaction times is much lower. They plan on redoing the UI so it's very clean and responsive. And another important thing is they have said they are interested in adding Decred to this. They said that on Twitter. It's not going to be part of the initial coins they have, but they are interested in Decred. And there are fiat pairs, and I think it could be a really good initiative, and it'd be great to see Decred on there, especially since they have fiat pairs. And Decred DEX doesn't have fiat pairs. It's one of the complaints is you need to buy into cryptocurrency first and then send it to the DEX. But yeah, it's a fork of Bisq. So I think most of what applies to BISC is going to apply to this new exchange.
I
Send you
see.
this.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood that. Now that I mean, the way I see Bisc, as I was reading through all their notes, and it looked to me like they had this multi-sig pair where you had to put in a bit of funds first, and I think I've got it written down here. It was 0.01 BTC, which is currently about $380, where both parties had to put that into a lock, and then they could do their trade. And once the trade had completed and both parties had signed off, that would then go back to them. And I thought that was quite interesting. The problem that I saw is that, the person sending fiat would obviously have to send theirs first or something, and then the other person would have to sign it. Now that's all very well whilst the orders are quite small, but I can imagine if you were doing 5 or 10 BTC,
Exactly. It's more
there might be a
geared for
problem there.
smaller amounts. I don't know if you ever used like local coin swap or one of these swaps, Paxful. There's a number of sites out there that kind of already do this. Some are KYC, some aren't, but it's the same type of deal where you put in escrow. So say you're the one selling coins, you put the coins into escrow into the multi-sig wallet, then the other person pays you in whatever the agreed payment method is. But what happens here is there's a lot of trouble with the fiat currencies, because say if you use PayPal or one of these more normal payment methods, it's PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. You can use Venmo, but the problem is you can contact PayPal and tell them to redo the transaction, and that actually happens a lot. And what happens is the sellers on these platforms have to raise their prices by a lot, like 30%, to make up for all the scammers, because people do get scammed on these platforms a lot.
I was noticing that because I read through pretty much all the docs this morning on Bisc, and one of the things that they were saying is that PayPal isn't one of them because of the recharge factor, which is what you were just talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
You do a recharge, you say, oh, I don't want to do this payment. And PayPal goes, okay. And they take it back. And
yeah,
obviously, since cryptocurrency, there's no takebacks. So yeah, it's messy. It's a very messy system. It's geared for, yes, if you want to do smaller amounts of cryptocurrency. I don't know the exact number of coins traded on the DEX. I asked in the chat. I don't know if the developers know, but I believe it was over $500 million was traded on the DEX, which is quite impressive. And of course, on the DEX, there's no chargebacks.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, once you get into fiat pairs, you've instantly got this middle person. No matter which way you kind of look at it, whether it's the bank that you're sending the money to, you've always got these extra kind of parties that at any point could say no, you're not doing that, or whatever. So and I can see why DCRDEX probably hasn't had that yet, but if Monero go, and I didn't honestly realize what you were talking about, and kind of it's sunk in. If Monero have gone down and they've forked the BISC platform, and I'm presuming that because they've got atomic swaps now, that they're going to build atomic swaps into that. That's my assumption,
No,
of course.
no,
No,
it doesn't, no, does
oh,
not use
that's a real.
atomic swaps.
Well, I was just thinking, that could be an instant kind of nice gateway for Decred as well. But that's a real shame. But because they've actually, I mean, Monero have built out the atomic swaps. So it'd be nice if they could be on the DCRDEX as well.
Yeah, that was discussed. They just said it would take lots of work to do, and it's just simply put not a priority. But I do think we will see Monero on the DEX at some point.
Yeah, I think so. No, but I think that's a really interesting discussion. I mean, with all this stuff that's happening in decentralized exchanges, the future really does look bright. And I love the fact that, I mean, especially for the DCRDEX, that it is our bridge. It's, if you want a safe haven, you leave it in DCR, and you stake and you get your rewards. And then once you want to play around with Ethereum or one of these tokens, you can send a small amount straight through without any kind of problems, without having to touch centralized exchanges and rack up all the different bills that you would do. So I think in terms of our interoperability, the DCRDEX is absolutely amazing. I'm loving the future for it, to be fair. Is there anything? Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to agree with you. Yeah, DEX is getting better and better every month. Lots of new improvements. And yeah, hopefully we see that smaller lot size. I know that's one of the things that's coming is, I think it's going to be 20 DCR It could be 10, but I believe it's going to be 20 DCR in a lot size, which I think will make the DEX more attractive, because I think there's people out there, myself included, who like when they try something new, they like to use small amounts of cryptocurrency first, just to see how it works, as opposed to using a larger amount. Like, right now, I think a minimal trade at $60 per Decred, 40 coins, is about $2,400, which isn't a very small amount. And I think people would be comfortable executing the trades with small amounts of currency first, just to see how it plays out, because it's a new thing. You know how when you first use cryptocurrency, you're going to send it somewhere, you send a small amount first to make sure it goes.
I'm 100% in that pool, and I think
I
it's
think most
one of the
people are.
things. Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons I've been so kind of reluctant a little bit. But I mean, and as I said to you a few months back, is the pair that I'm looking for is the low mining fee, so that I can do maybe one DCR or two DCR, just because I know that the point is that if you, especially on the Bitcoin chain, if you have too small a lot, the percentage of fees actually becomes higher. So I understand the point. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I can't wait for that, to be fair. That's
Uh,
when I'm going to start really playing.
yeah, and the Havano Dex is going to collect fees. They said the trading fee is going to be less than 1%, but the fee is going to go towards the development of the Dex, which is fine. That's interesting, because Monero obviously doesn't have a treasury, or a block reward going to a treasury, so they need some way to keep it going. Um, but yeah, it's
There's
basically, it's a fork of Bisq, and it, with a few things changed, a few improvements. I think it'll be interesting. I'd love to try it out when it comes out. But yeah, it basically is a glorified, one of these swap things, multi-sig with the escrow. So I don't think it really competes with the DCRDEX too much. DCRDEX is its own beast.
No, I think so. I think atomic swaps is kind of revolutionary, really, and it literally is, as far as I'm aware, the only way of not creating a middleman that holds onto the coins. And like you said, the
Oh,
multi sigs are quite vulnerable at the minute, actually, from what I've seen.
yeah, it was a big deal in 2017. Decred was the first project to do it. I believe they wrote the underlying tools. The developers wrote the underlying tools for atomic swaps, and they did the first one with Litecoin with Charlie Lee involved. It was a big deal, and then no one talked about atomic swaps. But the Decred developers were like, "All right, we're gonna make a DEX out of this. This is pretty awesome." And we have a DEX now, and no one else did anything with atomic swaps, from what I understand. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
I
maybe
think so.
Beam. I don't know if you know Beam. Beam has a DEX built into their wallet. I'm not explicitly sure how it works. Um,
Beam's Mimble Wimble, isn't it?
Beam Minimal Privacy Coin. They have a DEX built into their wallet. I think it uses atomic swaps, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think it does nearly the volume that Decred does.
So the Havano wallet, then, so they're going to do less than 1% in kind of just trade, like the trader fees. I'm assuming that it does have the mining fees as well as that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's in Monero, so the mining fees are super low. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
isn't it? It's not even a factor really.
So that's actually gonna be quite a nice little option for most people. I quite like that.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Um,
It's great development for sure.
yeah. Well, the final bit on the agenda is the voting that finished just before we did the last live stream. We did have 4 votes that went through, and obviously now we are about. I think it's 9 days. If this glitches, guys, I do apologise. I'm going to go to this website, and hopefully it doesn't chuck me out and my sync go off. No, we're good. We're good. So we've got, and I'll bring it up on the screen as well. Now I've loaded it. We've got four consensus votes going through, and maybe next month we'll talk a little bit more about these. But we've got 7 days or 1,844 blocks. Obviously, the one that's getting talked about the most is, oops, if it loads, it's shut me out, I think. It won't load that last bit. There it is. The one that's getting talked about the most is the proof of work split. So what are your thoughts and opinions for the coming 6 months or so with the
Oh,
stake change and how the price and how the system's going to react?
I am excited. I am counting down the days to when my tickets give me 1.76 Decred per ticket, which is around 10% yield when this ticket price is around 200 Decred per ticket. So I am counting down the days. I think a lot of people are excited. Every stakeholder is pretty excited, because now you get to get a 10% yield in a layer one store of value protocol. So, and on top of that, you get to vote on Politeia proposals, consensus changes, DAO spends, the treasury spends. So it's really exciting. I think it's going to be very positive for the project. We're getting a lot of FUD in our, Reddit and sometimes in the chat rooms. Oh, this is going to kill Decred. Some of these miners are coming out of the woodwork, even though this change has been we've been in the process of this change for like 6 months, and they're just now coming out of the woodwork like, what's happening? You guys are going to kill Decred. No, I think this is like saving Decred, because these miners have no skin in the game. They have no allegiance to Decred. They don't care about the project. They just care about making their profits, paying off their machines, making a little more profit, then moving on to something else. So I'm really excited, and it's gone by pretty quick. Like, it's hard to believe only 1 week until this hard fork occurs, and we have these new rules.
In the 6 years of Decred videos that I did, I noted on that it had actually been less than 6 months from the time Jake put the proposal up to like next week, and I just think that's absolutely phenomenal. And I've got to say that for anyone that hasn't bought a ticket yet, and if funds allow, it's the most addictive process I've ever been involved in. The amount I've checked my wallet now just to see if it's voted is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, brilliant. The one that I think has been overlooked the most, and I want to do a video on this. My thing's cutting out. Oh, it's so annoying. I've got to sort my system out. But the one that I'm looking forward to the most is the actual explicit version upgrades, where Decred will be the first hard fork only system in a formal governance way. And I think this is really exciting, although it probably won't have that big an impact on Decred, because literally it kind of already does this. But
it's something Decred solves, but yeah, obviously it's a nice little improvement that's just cleans things up a bit, I guess. Sets things straight.
One of the problems that I saw, almost a year ago probably, and I think Dave brought this up, is where people had shoehorned newer versions in, and that's what this was all about, saying no, explicit version, everyone has to be running exactly the same version until a vote has happened. And I thought that was really good, and it's one thing I appreciate about Dave Collins, and it'd be lovely to get Dave on the show if he's ever available to talk about this sort of stuff, because I've learned so much from it over the last few months. But it's one of the things that I appreciate, especially from him and all the rest of the team, is the way that they're always looking at the way the project works and seeing how that they can improve it in these small, really, really small ways. And I think I just love it, and I think that's an absolute genius move, really. Any thoughts on that, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I was just going to give a shout out to your recent video about the soft fork versus hard fork. Very well produced, very informative for any of you guys looking to kind of dig deeper into those details. I know it can be a bit confusing, but Decred Society really breaks it down and explains, why it's so important in Decred. And this is one of those things that most people in cryptocurrency simply don't care about. These fine details, soft fork versus hard fork. Most people don't know what that is. They don't care, but it obviously in Decred, it's a big deal, and we take it seriously. So go check out his video. It's right here on the Decred YouTube channel. Very, very well done.
Yeah, and I can't take full credit for that, unfortunately. I mean, it actually started back in the last proposal. I actually started building that video, and Dave Collins kind of picked me up on a whole bunch of stuff. And literally I had some conversations with him, and that's how it came about. So it was actually quite a mammoth task to try and make sure that I got all the content right on that one. Before we close out, 'cause I think we're pretty much done. There's no comments, any more comments in the chat. But if you guys have in the next 30 seconds want to add a comment, by all means feel free to. And it looks like we've had loads of views tonight anyway, so it looks like there's 7 people viewing it currently and 33 views overall, which is absolutely amazing. And thank you for coming by and supporting this. One thing I do want to say is, obviously we've got this video proposal going, or Exodus has got this video proposal going. And if there is anyone out there that wants to create videos, you do need to get in touch with Exodus, because actual fact, there is money in the pot. Well, I'll let Exodus talk about it actually, rather than me talk for him.
Yeah, sure. So we're always looking for talented people. We have a budget for videos. If you want to, if you think you can do something, add something, then, the best way is to just do the work first and foremost, do the work. And, if the community really likes it, you can be brought on board. We have a budget. So yeah, but the one thing that I have to say is you can't just come and be like, hey, I want to do videos. What can I do? Or like, what do you want me to do? Or it has to be, you kind of have to be autonomous. You have to be able to be independent, self-sufficient. Like Decred Society came and just did all his videos. He was able to handle it all on his own. So he was like the perfect match,
Yeah. The other point I want to put out is if you are a writer and you want to get involved in writing for Decred and want to put yourself out there, and obviously same as what I did with the videos and some of my writing as well, and we can get you known to the system. If you want to kind of have a post written for decredsociety.com, I want to try and make that a little bit bigger as well, and try and get more engagement on that, just so that we can kind of introduce new people to the community and try and build some better things. It's all exciting stuff, and I love the direction. But ultimately, if we don't get involved, if we don't make this content and get more people involved, it does not stagnate so much. But it would just be nice to see more people getting involved. And if you love the project, shout about it. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, we have two questions here.
Yeah, go on, then you take it away.
GM says, I've been learning all summer as a newbie. The interface is simple, bought some tickets and jazzed about being part of it. Yeah, great. That's the best way to be in Decred, have some tickets so you can participate in the governance. And now you get that 10% stake yield. So yeah, glad you joined us and glad you thought the interface was simple and it was all easy. Crypt Talk says, hi, how would you, in just a few words, encourage people to invest in Decred? Basically, I would say Decred is Bitcoin, but with stakeholder-based governance and staking. Imagine Bitcoin, but with a 10% yield from staking. So you're in this hard layer one store of value protocol, but now you can stake your coins as opposed to them just kind of sitting in your wallet doing nothing. You can stake your coins, allowing you to vote on governance decisions. You have a direct vote on the consensus changes. You have a direct say in how the protocol works. Furthermore, you have a direct say in how the Decred DAO operates. The DAO, we have a treasury about $50 million, always growing, growing with as the exchange rate increases. But you have a direct say in how this treasury fund is spent. You have direct say on Politeia. So yeah, it's basically Bitcoin, but better, 10% yield from staking, course correction. That's basically the quickest way I could sum it up. Would you like to add anything, Decred Society? How would you encourage people to invest in Decred?
The one thing I would say to everyone is if you're using, in England, we tend to use Coinbase quite a bit. So if you're using Coinbase, something like that, or even Binance, the best thing you can do is, if you're using Binance, you can just buy it directly with a BTC and actually move it into the Decrediton wallet. Once it's in your Decrediton wallet and you see how easy it is and how easy it looks, the rest of it actually takes care pretty much of itself. And after that, for me, it just became a complete addiction. So actually using it, actually just kind of buying some, putting it in your wallet. It doesn't have to be a lot. The transaction fees, the mining fees are really, really low. So even if you were going to buy 10, 15, 20 pounds, whatever, just to get yourself started. And the other thing I was saying, to harp on about what X has just said, is it is very similar to Bitcoin. So the 21 million cap is relevant. So if you own 21 coins, you own well, I forget the percentage, but you are one of 21 million people that can own that amount of coins, and that makes you quite a big part of the system. And if you want to take that even further, by owning about 250 coins, makes you a stakeholder. So you're literally a stakeholder in a company as well as an ecosystem. God, they're coming through thick and fast now. Is this what?
Yeah, I was going to add to that. What was I going to say? Open the wallet of Decred. Look at Decred's wallet, Decrediton, and compare it to Zcash. Zcash's wallet, compare it to Litecoin's wallet, and compare it, of course, to Bitcoin's wallet. And most of them, all you can do is send and receive. That's it. Okay, in Zcash, you can send the shielded transaction, the privacy. Monero, you can only send and receive. Decred, open the Decred wallet. You have a built-in DEX. You have a governance tab. You have a staking tab. You have a Lightning Network transactions. You have on-chain transactions. So you're just getting so much more in Decred. Like the suite of features is just so much better. And again, you don't have to believe me. Just look at the wallet. when I
Good.
open the
Yeah.
Zcash wallet, I'm just bored. I'm like, okay, I have the send and receive button. I guess that's it. I receive the coins and they sit there. I think Permeable Nino said this. He was a Decred researcher, but you interact with Decred so much more, like literally 1,000 times more. You will interact with Decred in the wallet than you ever will with Bitcoin, because especially as a stakeholder, that's the main thing, is being a stakeholder. So
And
yeah,
don't forget to back up your keys because it's your
yeah.
responsibility. Do you want to take the next one, mate?
What's the next
Oh
question?
my goodness, where is it? I was thinking about that too. Um, what is that elevator speech for Decred? A consistent talking point. Take the playbook from protagonist and utilize that strategy to get the marketing out
Propagandist.
there. Yeah, propaganda. Sorry, the eyesight's gone to crap. I have to take my glasses off because I
Yeah.
kind of end up getting really hot. But
I don't know if GM, do you have an elevator speech? I feel like Decred has a lot going for it. And I think the main issue is most people in cryptocurrency don't understand about governance and the importance of having, self-sovereignty in the protocol. So in Ethereum, the Ethereum committee or whatever it's called just runs the whole thing, and people are okay with that. In Bitcoin, as we know, there's no governance, but at the same time, Blockstream runs the GitHub repo, so they basically control what happens. And then the miners, the proof of work miners, have a huge say in what happens. So there's just a lot of disinformation and there's a lot of apathy. People just don't care. And who knows, maybe more over time, more and more people will find out about Decred, and people who have certain values are attracted to it. It's said quite often that a more technical community is attracted to Decred, which I agree with, you know.
and we're not a casino, so that goes against us straight away. Most people in the space currently over the last year since we've been seeing the price go up, it's all been casino mentality. So unfortunately, we don't play those games, or the project doesn't really play those games. So a whole bunch more. What we got? I swap EOS and KuCoin for Decred. Well done, mate. Fantastic job. We should add EOS to the DEX. How is
Well,
EOS doing? I haven't heard of EOS for ages.
I'm not sure how EOS is designed. Is it a ERC20 token?
It's proof of stake, I believe.
I'm not sure. Well, DCRDEX is, it's, as we said, it's
EOS
open source.
Yeah, EOS is its own platform.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how it works, but unless there's significant demand for it, I mean, DCRDEX is open source and they are free to do the work to add themselves. It's all on GitHub. All the code is on GitHub,
And how do we get more people interested in the project, talking about it? You got to create the media, guys. If you're interested in this stuff,
yeah, we
do
need network effect. We need to just get more people interested. Unfortunately, a lot of these centralized exchanges like Coinbase just have not listed Decred, and I think that's been really unfortunate, because if you want to get mass people in, it needs to be on Coinbase. I had an uncle ask me, he's like, why isn't Decred on Robinhood? I want to buy some. And I was just like, well, we don't control that. There's nothing we can do. They list what they're going to list. Decred is just going to do its own thing, get better in every way it can. Obviously, the DEX was built because, if the centralized exchanges won't list us, what can we do? We can go ahead and build our own DEX with atomic swaps, self-custody, no KYC. Obviously, that doesn't completely solve the issue, because you can't use fiat currency to buy, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, and that was one of the next questions. Actually, sorry for the question. Is there a bridge where I can send stable to Decred network?
I'm guessing stable means stable coins.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Well, that's coming. The Ethereum work is well underway. From what I understand, they've been testing it on testnet. It shouldn't be much longer till it's on mainnet. And yes, you can use the ERC20 stable coins to trade for Decred. So that's going to be a very interesting development. And I strongly recommend you closely follow the project. And we will be probably yelling about it from the top of our lungs when that is available.
Yeah, as loud as we can. I think that brings us to pretty much it. So thanks, guys, for watching. What do you want to talk about next week, next month? Monero has got their tail emission kicking in this month, haven't they? Maybe we could do a little bit on that, do a bit of research on that.
Yeah, we can look into, maybe we can just look into the subsidy change is going to be the biggest thing for next month to
That's going
talk
to be
about,
massive.
and maybe there'll maybe there'll be some more developments, especially in the decks. I know there's some things planned, but we'll see.
Let's
But
put a
I really appreciate
timestamp.
you guys asking questions. I think this is what gives value to a live stream, is when you can interact live with people watching, and you can ask questions, we can answer. I think that's really important, and I'd really like to see more of that. And if more people, if you guys want to come on the stream, we want more people to come on the stream. I think that would also empower the stream. It's just have a community of people coming in, talking about Decred, why they, how they found it, why they like it, why they're staking, etc.
I am still here. My camera battery just went dead, so I was literally just rigging it up again. But one thing I was going to say is we should put a timestamp in on the price. So the price is currently $55 as of this stream. So we'll see how the vote has an impact on that and see what happens.
Good idea. Yes. Okay, that's all I have for today. But thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in.
Yep, we're almost back. Yeah, thanks for coming by, guys. Really, really appreciate it. And fantastic stuff. Sorry about the camera going at the end there. My batteries just seem to die. I need to get a better one. But absolutely appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Exodus. Brilliant stuff. And looking forward to the next one.